All right, what's going on, everybody? Harrison Family Vlogs here, Dre here, and I have a special guest with me. I've been anxious to have a conversation with this brother, Christian YouTuber. Obviously, he's a melanated brother, and this brother has a lot to say, a lot of insight, and I really wanted to get him in and have a conversation about a few things that's happening in society. Give a Christian perspective, a melanated Christian perspective, biblical perspective about certain things that's happening. Because, lately I've been, sharing content about my faith and how I perceive things in society from a faith lens and from a Black man of faith lens. And getting this brother, Pastor Roy Dockery, on to have this conversation with me is a very big thing for me because I appreciate his insight. The brother has wisdom beyond wisdom. He also has experience that helps navigate his wisdom. So without further ado, Pastor Roy Dockery, introduce yourself.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks, Dre. Yeah, I'm Pastor Roy Dockery, former host of the audio podcast, The Savage Truth. Now, the host of the YouTube channel, Pastor Roy Dockery, where we do Savage Truth and Savage News daily. So, like Brother Andre, I touched on a lot of stuff that goes on a daily basis and try to put things into a context of how, like you said, how we should be perceiving these things as Christian. My goal is to try to direct and to drive Christian action, right? Not just Christian intellectualism or Christian debate and whatever, but like, what do we do? Like, what do we do in our daily lives? And, when we're at work, when we're interacting and engaging with the world to make Christ attractive, instead of making him something that's repellent to people, because most people who call themselves Christians don't act like Christ. And that's the savage truth. So,
yeah. And it's something that you say often. Don't judge Christ through Christians, just Christ through Christ. Did I quote you correctly?
Don't judge Christ by Christians, judge Christ by Christ.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. And your content is really encouraging. Been following you for several months now. And if you have not subscribed to Pastor Roy Dockery, I'm gonna leave a link in the description. Please go over there, subscribe to his channel. Encouraging content, relevant and real content as well. So without further ado, let's get into the topic of the day. All right. So you are correct me if I'm wrong, retired military.
Ex-military. I ain't that old, but okay, yeah, I'm a veteran. So yeah, I'm ex-Navy.
Ex-Navy. All right. And you have a perception and an understanding that I could never have. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. I in high school, I said to myself, I would never serve in the military, and I'll tell you why. I'm a nice guy, right? But one thing I can't tolerate is another grown man screaming in my face. Like, to have a grown man spitting in my face, projectile, and like I would be the type to tell the drill sergeant, "Sir, your breath smells," right? Like just to get on his nerves. And I remember I was in high school, and in my high school we had junior ROTC. My boy Paul, right? He's going to watch this. My boy Paul was the senior. I believe he was a senior junior ROTC member at the school, right?
Yeah.
And it was the end of the day. I'm walking through the school courtyard, and he was supervising two of the underclassmen take down the flag. One of them accidentally dropped the flag on the floor. And my friend Paul ripped into him in front of everybody. And I said, yo, me and Paul will probably get into a fight at that moment. Like, you're not yelling at me and embarrassing me in front of everybody here. Yeah. And then at that point, I said to myself, yeah, I can't go into the military. It won't happen, because then I would get in trouble. Like, I'm a nice guy. I just don't deal with, people screaming on my face. Just ask nicely. Like, just tell me, hey, do 10 push-ups, please.
Just ask me a question.
I got you, But so you can offer insight that I may not know. And this past week, there was two situations that were pretty opposite that had to deal with members of the military. One where a member of the military, from my understanding, he was a lieutenant.
He was I believe second lieutenant. His name was Karan Nazirio.
Mm-hmm.
Half black, half Latino. Army officer.
Yeah, and he gets tased, pulled over, and tased. And I watched that video, and I think I did a video on this. You guys can check back on the video I did. He seemed to comply. And I think the only mistake he did was maybe not pulling over right away, which may have frustrated the cops. But that's not really a mistake in itself. However, here we have the military, who people are supposed to respect, people are supposed to have, a sense of reverence for, right? And we have police officers where Americans tend to have, especially the right wing, a high reference for also. So now it's like the immovable force going against the unstoppable object, right? So now
Yeah.
we have a situation where both entities in America, especially, white America, seems to revere so highly the military and the police, come into clash, right?
Yeah.
And you would think that there would be a mutual respect between the two, especially since in America, they're so highly regarded. But in this situation, this military man, he's dressed in his fatigues. He tells him that he's a army officer,
Yep.
still gets treated this way by the police officer. And he happened to be a man of color, right? And from
Yeah.
the very start of that interaction, that engagement, the officer was very hostile, to the point of, at least from what we saw in the video, the video started off with him saying, I'm afraid. And the officer saying, you should be afraid.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, you
that's,
about to ride the lightning, right? Like
yeah.
the reference to tasing him before he even got out the car.
Mhm.
Like, why am I gonna get out the car? You just told me you're gonna tase me.
Yeah.
And like you said, the frustration was, why did it take you so long to pull over? He offered an answer, right? He said, I wanted to pull into a well-lit space. So he pulled into the gas station.
Yeah. And the thing is, and I mentioned this in the video, I think you may have touched on this too in the video too, about the American flag and Colin Kaepernick being, ridiculed in society, especially with the right part of our culture, for kneeling for the national anthem. So I'm not, as a ex-military, I'm not sure how you feel about that, but I'm not here to say he was right or he was wrong for kneeling. Right. What I am here to say is that for Americans to be so irate about him kneeling for the national anthem in solidarity of police brutality, and to make a statement against police brutality, and for Americans to say, well, it's disrespectful to our troops. When it comes to police, right? Police disrespecting our troops. Who's right and who's wrong here? And now, in hindsight, looking at Colin Kaepernick, and you have to be thinking, you know what? The man has a point, because if kneeling against police brutality for the national anthem is disrespectful to the soldiers, right? And police disrespecting Black soldiers isn't the problem, then how do we look at this? Like, it just seems like there's a huge disconnect and inconsistency in our culture.
Well, it's because it's compartmentalizing to a point of where it's nonsensical, right? Because it's you compartmentalize, and then they essentially find reason to take issue or offense to any Black statement against white systems or white privilege or white supremacy, right? Like to even just say that because the national anthem is sung during the parading of the colors, which is the American flag and sometimes other military flags, which is not a military event. The national anthem is not a military song. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, in the Navy, we sing Anchors Aweigh. It's not like he took a knee in the middle of singing Anchors Aweigh. It's not like he took a knee in the middle of a bunch of Marines saying Semper Fi, right? Like, he didn't. It's the national anthem, which actually has no direct correlation to the military at all. Wow. Right? This isn't a military event. Yeah. So it's not like it's the parade of colors is not a military thing. Like, it's just not. They do it at sporting events. They do it at other things not tied to military institutions. So people just wanted to find a reason to take issue with it, right? So then, like you said, you fast forward. Now you've got a military person saying, like, hey, bro, like, and you just said it, like, we're supposed to be mutually regarded, like, and what did it, and I think it's Officer Gutierrez was like, I was in the military. We were taught to obey. Like, that was his response when he was like, bro, I'm in the military. Why you treat me like this? I got my hands out the window. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing anything. It's a traffic violation. He actually stated his legal right. The officer did. He said, I don't have to get out of my car for a traffic stop. And it's a traffic violation. And they were like, well, now you tried to elude us. He was like, no, I didn't. And he asked for their supervising officer, which they're supposed to, what they're supposed to comply with, which they also violated. And that's why Gutierrez was fired. But right, people will watch that instance and be like, oh, he should have just got out the car. But then you watch the Kaepernick incident and it's like, oh, you should have just stood up. And then you watch the Pentland incident and it's like, oh, what would you have done? So it's like, okay, so what you're saying is that you will always find an excuse to compromise on the side of white supremacy, or to compromise on the side of corrupt systems, or to compromise on the side that seems to be positioned against the minority or the victim or the oppressed party in that situation. Like, you're just going to find a reason. So it's like, this isn't logical, right? Because you were mad. And I love the way that you put it. y'all put both of these people up on the pedestal. You put the military on the pedestal, and you put, but you got now with John Pendleton to tie it to that. You got a white man in the military where you're painting military. And I said this in my video that I did on Pendleton. People act like folks in the military ain't racist. People act like people in the military don't have their own issues when they clearly do. You know what I'm saying? But you put the military on the pedestal, and now you've got a man in the military still on active duty, which means he doesn't get time off. He's not a police officer. When you're in the United States military, you don't get days off. You are under the legal requirements of the Uniform Code of Military Justice until you are discharged from the military. You can't take it off. So he is still required to be a military personnel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But he's clearly being racist and aggressive. So, you know what I mean? Like, you don't ruin like Americans on the right have had their lives ruined, which is probably why Pat Robertson has to look at everything from a different perspective now. Because, right, you got the police who openly did something disrespectful and assaulted a military person. Now you got a military person who's on video clearly being racist. And it's just like it's like the brain explosion of the two forces that you treat as if they're perfect. Right? These two forces that you idolize, who are not Christ, are showing their humanity and their brokenness and their sinfulness, and it's on video for everybody to see.
Yeah, that's a great point, because it just, to me, I have a thing about inconsistency, right? Like if like I was talking to somebody just the other day, slightly off topic but on topic, about Christians, right? And how and white evangelicalism in America will go so hard in legalizing certain moralities, right? Like, abortion and same-sex marriage, because those are wrong. But then they turn a blind eye when it comes to things like this, right? So for a man like Pat Robertson to say what he said was I gotta say, it was off-putting. It had me thinking also, like, what's his angle here? Yeah. But I noticed that more and more, and I wouldn't say more and more, because I got actually exposed for saying more and more. There's some white evangelicals who are vocal about this, but the problem is they're the ones who are silenced. So they're put on the side. They're not asked to speak in certain places because of their stances, right? So white evangelicalism, they're in a position where, in this situation, the two high entities are at odds with one another, right? They're supposed to be representing America in a specific light, and in essence trying to prove us wrong. There's a situation where this was a position where they could prove wrong, and the variable here is this: the military man who was pulled over was a person of color. The young man, and from my understanding, he was walking in his own neighborhood, right? He lived in that neighborhood according to what he was saying, right?
I was trying to find that. I can't find if he lived there or not, but no, I mean, he wouldn't trespass and he wouldn't break any laws.
So, and then from here, a white military man is now berating and harassing this young black man who was walking through this neighborhood. Like, it makes me think that now here's a consistent, when it comes to white evangelicalism. Is it that you value police? Is it really that you value the military? Or is it that variable that you really don't want to admit to, and it's the devaluing of black life? Like, which one is it? Because you can't now, and this, I think in this situation, it sort of reveal that, and it's got to have got to put us in a position where we have a conversation about it. Because now we're in a situation where, and that's where it comes to me, the inconsistencies is frustrating to me. Because you're saying we can't be disrespecting the police. All right. You can't be disrespecting the military. Okay. But if they're black, do they get the same treatment? Or if they're a female, will they get the same treatment? Because now it's a situation where you mentioned white supremacy. A part of that white supremacy is white privilege. Yeah. Can these officers do these things with the understanding that I know I'm going to get away with it? I know who I am. I can get away with this. So I'm going to do whatever I can. I'll do whatever I want because I know I can get away with it.
Yeah. And it's because they know they have more power, right? We saw this in the insurrection, right? When they walked into the Capitol breaking laws and said, crazy. This is our house.
Yeah.
And then there's more reports coming out now, right? That they were told, Capitol Police were told what weapons to not use, to not have salt pepper balls, to not bring riot gear. They were literally told to handle these rioters with kid gloves, to the point to where they didn't let them bring the stuff that they normally use for SWAT or whatever, because they were like, right, but again, how are you evaluating these people that you're expecting to be protesting?
Yeah.
Like, where you tell the police department to handle them with a certain level of sensitivity.
Yeah.
Right. And not a certain level of, like, you can't even achieve a certain level of aggression as far as crowd control, because we're not even going to let you bring the pepper spray and the rubber ball bullets that you seem to be, armed with every time Black people get within 6 blocks of the Capitol, let alone a protest that's scheduled to go directly to it. But it's just that thing. And I think you hit on it. It's like, right, the reality of it is, and, and I say it in a lot of my, in a lot of my posts, right? Like, you always see the opportunity where the American church, institutions, leaders have a chance where they get to make the decision, the definitive decision. Am I going to compromise with white supremacy or am I not? Right. And I think what you're seeing, and they get to make that choice in all of these situations. Right. So I think you'll, like, George Floyd pops up. I'm like, I'm gonna compromise on the white supremacy side, because then what's the answer? I'm gonna wait until there's more evidence.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna take a stance that the value of this Black man's life being lost in a 9-minute video of someone sitting on his neck while he's being positionally asphyxiated. I'm not gonna lay on that side, because the evidence in this situation is that that's a Black man, right? And then that, like, the white man in this situation has to be proven wrong before I value that Black man at a level where he didn't deserve 9 minutes of being suffocated. Right. So, and then right. And that's what you kind of see pivoting in these situations where they kind of, I gotta have a preponderance of evidence, right? Like, I can't respond like these were two equal people. And in this situation, in an equitable manner, it doesn't seem like one of these people were treated fairly or given the same opportunity or right to live. Right. So, like, but now what you're seeing is it's becoming less acceptable in the majority of white people, in my opinion, for people to openly compromise with racism and supremacist behavior. Like, it's becoming unpopular. And I tell people all the time, bro, this is the main thing you could tell from that. When NASCAR said take down the Confederate flag, NASCAR, who knows that like 98% of their fans are white. People thought they were going to go bankrupt. They were going to lose their sponsors. NASCAR got new sponsors, right? Because there were some people who weren't putting money into NASCAR because they knew that a lot of their fans were racist, right? They knew they flew Confederate flags at their racetracks. So when you have an like, that's kind of one of the last bastions of white male, right, identity, is like the NASCAR, and that got taken. Now that Jordan has a team, right? Like, and you know what I mean? And Bubba Wallace got his own car. And so like I see that shift away from it. So now there's less of a risk financially, right? There's less of a risk. And so, yeah, I don't give people like Pat Robertson credit for coming along now, because first of all, as the church, we're supposed to be the light, which means we're supposed to be leading. Like, you behind Netflix, you behind Hulu, you behind Nike, you behind everybody at this point, white evangelical American church, on not wanting to compromise with white supremacy. I'll give you a thumbs up for being less racist, but you don't get no credit for being behind the world yet again. Because the American church has been behind the world since Dred v. Scott and Brown versus the Board of Education and the Civil Rights Act and Jim Crow laws. They've always been behind, and they're still there. And some of them catch up, which is fine, but you don't get credit from me from catching up.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that, and that's where the American church in large fail, because we should be on the forefront. And when I mean I'm talking about like the body of believers, no matter what skin color you are. Every social injustice that takes place in this country, because we are gospel focused, we should be on the forefront of. Because we understand that the Lord detests an unbalanced scale. The Lord values justice, right? Not using, because I've been in conversations with pastors who would say, well, I would ask questions like, well, why do you go so hard for abortion and so hard for, against same-sex marriage, but not so much for police brutality? Well, they say, well, the police, that's not really my issue. Like, The unborn can't fend for themselves, and same-sex marriage is an abomination, the Bible says. But the police needs patience, and they need the gospel, they need grace. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Don't everybody need grace?
Yeah,
like I don't.
So, and that's the inconsistency there, right? So
yeah,
we are behind. So then we get frustrated when organizations like Black Lives Matter come and they have their side agenda, but they're pushing the work ahead and still pushing their side agenda, while we aren't pushing that work ahead and pushing our agenda, which is to get people saved. So what we're not going to do is speak against police brutality, right?
Yeah.
And preach the gospel. We're not going to do that. We're just going to be in the background and complain about the organizations that are actually doing the work, when it should be us.
And this is a hypocrisy about that situation. And me and you haven't gotten a chance to talk a lot. Like I tell my wife, I'm allergic. My wife will tell you I'm allergic to fakeness, right? Because I don't like inconsistency, right? Like integrity is important to me because the Bible tells us to be integrous individuals and people above reproach, right? Which means our reputation should align with what we do. So if you go back 4 years, right, to the Trump legacy that became the Republican Party, what did evangelical Christians say, right? Like a lot of them, the ones who were not fully drinking the Kool-Aid, would be like, well, yeah, I don't agree with what he says. I don't agree with what his behavior. There's other stuff that he's doing that I don't align with, but I think he's going to fulfill something for the benefit of the kingdom or for the Christians or from the church or protection of religious persecution. So I'm okay to align with that. So Dre, why, when other people, black or white, say the same thing about Black Lives Matter, that I don't agree with their attack on the nuclear family. I don't agree with the heavy, with the gender identity and the pro LGBTQ, but they're doing some things, right? They're doing, hold on, I'm gonna hit my message. They're doing some things on the side and in the justice, in the push for police reform and doing things in local community and community oversight boards that I can agree with. And mind you, this isn't somebody I have to vote for.
Facts.
This isn't somebody I even have to align myself with. Yeah. And so on a given day, I can choose to be with or not be with them because I'm not putting them in a position of power, right? And I'm not contributing them. But if they're doing an event, doing something in community, I can align with that. So again, that's the inconsistency of you can pick a part of Donald Trump that you like and then ride out on that, and forget everything else that he's doing and his history and his present and his future. But if we align with Black Lives Matter because of a specific initiative they may have in an individual community or a specific movement or program that they're trying to launch in a city because of the impact that it would have, a positive impact, even in some sense, a biblical impact, right? As far as balancing those scales of injustice that God hates. You know what I mean? Like now we not Christian. So now I'm not Christian if I align myself with the unbiblical Black Lives Matter, but you could have still been Christian and aligned yourself with the very unbiblical Donald Trump.
Wow. That's bars. Mic drop. There's not much to even say after that. Wow. That was intensely real. Yeah. So, and I doubt anybody can actually have a logical answer to the way you explain that. Can't.
That's what happens with the savage truth. It's just like, I mean, because you can disagree with it, but you're not going to disagree with it because it's not true, right? Like it might make you feel some kind of way, but it's not true. Like we don't like that. The truth is the truth at the end of the day, and we all know that sometimes we pick and choose the truth that we follow, right, and the truth that we apply, and that's just real. But we got to be able to confront ourselves with that just as much, man. But we already done got into it, man. What are we talking about? Well, let's all right. Talk about old Baldy.
Go away right now. Call the police.
Hey, they've already been called. They're just waiting.
Picking fights with who?
You know what? Maybe you should hang out a little longer. We'll see how it goes. Then we won't have to get the report by ourselves.
What is it you're doing here?
Walking.
Then walk.
Okay, that's what I was doing. So she came out of the house.
Well, you've been here like 15 minutes now.
Let's go. Walk away.
Keep walking.
Walk away.
I already walked away.
Walk away right now. You need help?
You got this on camera.
I'm happy to help you. I didn't hit you. There's a difference between pushing you.
You were the aggressor, buddy.
You're aggressing on their neighborhood.
Someone came running.
Walk back.
You better walk away. You walk away. You talking to my wife right now.
That's your wife?
Walk away.
I didn't do
walk away.
Your wife was speaking.
Check it out. You either walk away or I'm going to carry your ass out of here.
Dude, if you touch
What do you want to do?
You better not touch me.
Or what? What are you going to do?
You up on me.
Let's go. Walk away.
I didn't do anything to you.
I'm about to do something to you. You better start walking.
I do anything to her.
You better start walking right now.
You come after me like that?
I ain't coming after you. You're in the wrong neighborhood, motherfucker. Get out. Get out.
I live here, sir.
Where? Where's your house? What's your address?
Maybe we should walk you home.
You can't walk me home.
Well, you bet. You want to bet what I can do?
I live here, sir.
Okay,
Right
what's
now,
your
you're
address?
harassing the neighborhood.
I'm not harassing anyone walking through the neighborhood I live in, sir.
Where? Because check it out. We are a tight-knit community.
Okay.
We
How
take
long
care
have
of
you
each
been
other.
here? How long
A
have you
hell of a
been
lot
living
longer than your ass, because I have never seen you before in my
How long
life.
have you been living here?
That's
Why
none of
does
your
that even
business.
matter to you?
How long have you been
It
living
doesn't
here?
matter. You know what? Get the hell out of my face.
You've been
Get
in
out of my
place.
face.
You walked up to me.
Check it out, motherfucker. I ain't playing with you. You either get your ass moving, or I'm gonna move you.
You smell drunk.
You want to bet?
You are drunk.
I'm about to show you what I can do.
I would suggest that
You better walk away. Walk away. Walk away.
I'm walking. You keep following me, sir.
There's only one way out of here. It's right over there.
There's multiple ways out of here, sir.
You want to bet? Walk away.
I've been here before this whole subdivision.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, you've been harassing us for a while now.
Nobody knows you, sir. I don't even know your name.
Well, get to know me, because this is who I am.
Who are you?
It doesn't matter.
What's your name?
You don't need our
walk
name.
away.
But
Get out
Are
of
you an
here.
officer of the law?
I'm about to throw you out.
You can't.
You want to bet?
Hey.
I can do a hell of a lot more than you think I can.
Who is this?
Just move along.
Sir, you're acting like a child. Move on. Come on. You picked a fight with some random
I
young
don't
lady that's
even
one of
know
our
who she
neighbors.
is.
Get out of
Then
here.
walk.
Nobody picked a fight when someone ran up.
All
on
I
me.
heard was you fighting
Go
and her
away.
defending herself.
Fighting what?
Hey, come on. What's your name? Come on, you don't want no trouble.
I think that's enough. Like, I think we've seen enough of that, right?
Yeah.
To
yeah.
really. Now, here's the thing, right? Like, there's a couple of things that I think of, right? I think this young black man walking through a neighborhood, apparently, you know, it seems like he may have a condition, and you have people that don't understand the condition. They look at him; he's a black man terrorizing a community or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have this military man who should be, you know, trained enough. Again, I'm speaking ignorantly. I'm gonna be honest, because I don't know how, you know, people are trained in the military. But when you see somebody, you should know if they're actively a threat or not.
Yeah.
If he's really a threat, you know. And if they call the police, stay there and wait for the police to come. You know, you didn't have to take matters into your own hand. But either way, he did what he did. It's recorded. He did not think to stop his behavior and stop treating him the way he was treating him, despite being recorded. And the young lady who recorded was a black woman, a black lady. So
Shade, her name's Shade McCullum.
Yeah, I found her on Instagram, and I'm like, wait a minute. So he sees himself being recorded by, and everything is being recorded. Like, I would think, like, if I was in that situation, right, and I would think, all right, America is very sensitive right now. And this man is a young black man. I'm a bald-headed white guy in the military that happens to have a rank. Maybe I should really consider my actions right now, because it's going to be blasted on World Star. So let me shade room. So let me behave. He wasn't even thinking about that. You know, I'm not sure if he saw red or what, but he wasn't even considering his actions, how he was treating him, and he was being recorded. Then we got a situation where now the community is upset about it, and they protested in front of this man's house. I had a conversation with a lady who was like, it's wrong. That's his house. He paid mortgage there. And I said, well, you know what would have happened in the 1950s, 60s, and 40s? If that was a black man's house, they would have took this black man out of the house and hung him on the tree, right? Yep.
And then burned his house to the ground.
Yeah, burned his house to the ground. Like, and they were out there peacefully protesting, letting them know, we're not happy with what you did. All right. And now I guess he's trying to sell his house or whatever. I mean, I'm not sure how you feel about that. Like, ex-military, like, give me your take.
Yeah, so it's a couple things, man. So one, right? You know, when you look at the background, supposedly not. So you got Jonathan Pendleton, and then you have his wife, who's the other person you can see there kind of screaming at the young black man. Supposedly there was another young lady that I guess he had an interaction with, and I don't know if he like touched her on the shoulder or something, but it was like he touched her without her consent, and so she was upset. And then, like you said, like, and even in the clip that you just showed, there was another instance where he like picked up a baby without someone's permission. To be honest, he seems like a nice black guy in a white neighborhood that every time he touches something white, somebody calling the cops. Yeah. But right. And like you said, he may not understand that, like, okay, this is something I'm doing wrong. I don't know the individual personally. But first of all, like, he's walking on a public sidewalk. Mm-hmm. This is not on a military base. This is in Summit, South Carolina, where a friend of mine owned a house. And looking at the neighborhood, I think I've probably been in it before, right? Because friends of mine used to live in that neighborhood when I was stationed in North Charleston, not far from Summit. So a lot of my coworkers lived in the same area, and maybe even in that same development. But like, he's on a public sidewalk. So like, if something happened, first of all, I no longer even see the woman that he supposedly had an altercation with. Yeah. So either he walked past or she walked away. Mm-hmm. So like, you should have just let the man keep going about his business, right? But now he's like, now that Jonathan Pendleton's wife starts an argument with this young man, then she went and got her husband to escalate the problem when he's just walking through the neighborhood. He never touched her. He didn't say anything to her. She went and got her husband. And so again, at the point where that young man was turning around and walking away, he pushed him while he was walking away. Yeah. Right. They also slapped his phone out of his hand and broke it. But like you said, all of this is being recorded. And then, and that's, again, people don't get attention for catching up. Yeah. Because the young lady, Shade McCullum, said in her interview, when the police arrived on scene, she showed them the video. They asked her to rewind it to the point to where he pushed the young man. And he said she said that aggressive behavior didn't stop when she stopped recording, that they kept following him and harassing him up until the point that the cops got there, but she wasn't recording it because they didn't touch him again. But she showed the cops him getting pushed, the phone getting knocked out of his hand, and they did nothing. They did not arrest him for assault until the community showed up. So the Summit, South Carolina police, you get no kudos, again, for being late to the party and not addressing the crime that was shown to you on camera. And I'm sure the young man had expressed. But like, from a military perspective, like, you have no role here, bruh. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, even if you're military police, your job is to be police on that base, or in an instance with, like, your job, your role in the military right now, you just a dude who seems to exercise too much, that think you can put hands on people. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But all of that bravado and that gangsterness died down when 100 black people showed up outside your house. Mm-hmm. I said it in my video. You ain't come outside like Liam Neeson when all them black people was out there. Yeah. Like, you could take them all on while you're intimidating this black man who got on some Vans, some fitting shorts, and a medium t-shirt. Like, he does not look aggressive. And like you said, but he doesn't fit the description. No, he does not. Right. He got on the dad hat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, he does not look like a threat. He looked like somebody going on a walk. And just the fact that his wife was amping him up, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that was playing into the scenario because he's trying to be Mr. Macho in front of his wife. But it's inappropriate. Like, there's nothing from a military perspective. Like, you need to mind your business. And I would absolutely understand if there was a young woman being assaulted in the street. Yeah. You're not going to put your hands on a woman in front of me and not catch these hands. It's not going to happen. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to let you hit a woman or a child in my presence. I don't care what the situation is. Yeah. And that's military, pre-military, post-military, don't matter. You know what I mean? Like, I'm at least try to intervene and be like, first of all, you're going to go to jail, bruh, and you need to cut that out. But it's a matter of interjecting and then de-escalating, where he interjected himself into a situation that was already over and then chose to keep escalating it because he wanted to just be like an intimidating person. And he could tell that young man was scared. Mm-hmm. And then he kept just going down deeper into it, like threatening him and whatever. He was feeding off of the fear, and his wife co-signing and egging him on. And again, the question is why? Why? And would you have done that if that was a little white kid in your neighborhood? Would you have done that if that was somebody who looked like you? Yeah. And I think the answer is no, right? Because if you would have seen a white kid or a white teenager, you probably would have assumed he belonged there. Because and I've been in Summit. Like, these developments are not small. So how are you just coming to the conclusion that this man is not in his own neighborhood? Yeah. Right? Like, you're in the wrong neighborhood. So he knew and he felt comfortable in his immediate proximity, right? Because your neighbors that are on your street in the adjacent street. He was like, I know you ain't from around here, so I feel comfortable knowing that in this space, I can treat you this way and nobody's going to do anything because you're the minority. You're the person out of place in this space. And I'm going to use my majority position to oppress you with threats of violence and aggression that he got no penalty for. He got a ticket originally for breaking this man's phone, not assaulting him.
Wow. And then
the assault charge didn't come till later after the community responded to seeing the video.
Yeah.
So like, and that was it, right? I get a little ticket. I broke your little phone, whatever. Like I'll punch you out. I'm still the big man in this situation. And I don't really have any penalties, right? I'm not going to get my military career isn't going to be impacted by a citation. I'm going to pay that citation and move on. But now you get an assault charge, right? That's a violation of the UCMJ. You can get dishonorably discharged for that. That's different. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, he didn't have to evaluate that in his brain because he didn't feel like that black man had any right to be there. And he didn't feel like the system, the military system or the local police system would take that black man's side against his. That's why he had no fear doing what he was doing.
Yeah. Racism isn't getting worse. It's getting recorded.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that, you know, white America needs to really see that. It's always been there. It's still there. Now we have technology that allows us to record it. The thing is, if it's being recorded and nothing's being done, like in the past couple of years, you know, I'm glad that things are being done now, but it's like, as you said, they don't really get props for the video being put out there and them trying to appease a community by arresting them. They should have did it in the very beginning. And I think that that's part of the privilege that they have, that they don't realize they have, but they unconsciously know that they have. Like, it's not on the forefront of their mind, I can do this and get away with it. It's all conditioning. They behave because they're conditioned to behave this way, because they have this unconscious understanding that they can get away with it. But
yeah, like you condition behavior by what you reward and what you punish.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's just the reality of it. It's just like having a dog. You know what I mean? When you train a dog, when you train a pit or whatever, I've had pit bulls before, different animals. Like when you reward the dog when they do something good, you punish the dog when they do something bad. Like even in the situation we're talking about with the officer, the lieutenant, I think he was a second lieutenant in Virginia, Officer Gutierrez that got fired recently. That video was from December of 2020.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like that wasn't, I'm pretty sure, I think that video was from December of 2020. Wow. Yeah, because Dante Wright was the shooting that happened, but that footage got released because of the lawsuit that officer has. So like that didn't just happen, right? So when you think about a situation like that, where I just pepper sprayed somebody in uniform who was saying he ain't do nothing wrong, I still got to arrest him. I still put cuffs on him. I put him in my car. He got booked. That police officer isn't in that latter part of the criminal justice system. He doesn't know if that person got found guilty or innocent, or if the case got threw out by the DA because of charges or whatever. He just did his job. So the fact that he didn't get punished because of that, then you're conditioning that behavior. I can pepper spray and tase whoever I want to. Nobody's going to do anything about it. I don't have to show respect. I don't have to de-escalate. I can use aggression and violence and condescension and profanity and, you know what I'm saying, and idle threats and physical threats. And that's just in the course of me doing my job. If I don't get disciplined for that, right? Like if you go to Chick-fil-A and everybody say my pleasure and one person tells you to go suck an egg, you know what I'm saying? And like, if that person never gets in trouble, he's gonna be like, I guess I can do this every day. You know what I'm saying? Like it becomes the behavior. And then like, and that's what we've seen in with all of these things that get recorded and people still get off, right? When there's no punishment. Like that's the significance of these civil suits, where I think George Floyd was 27 million, Breonna Taylor was 13 million, where most families were settling out of court for $200,000-$300,000. My cousin was wrongly shot at by the police and almost killed. Like, I mean, like it went viral in New Haven, Connecticut. Like there was a bunch of stuff in the news about that. And they try to sweep that under the rug and give them a couple dollars to go away. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't really punitive. Like people got to feel that pain for them to adjust their behavior, or they're going to think it's normal and they're going to keep doing it. With no repercussion and with no correction to that behavior that leads to these extreme violence and these things that keep going viral that we see now that we're coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue into the Christian response. You know, white evangelicals have been very silent when it comes to things like this. I would say black evangelicals, we'll consider them that. Protestants have not been so silent, but they haven't had the backing of their white brothers and sisters in Christ, right? And I'm begged to ask, is it until now? Could things be changing? I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to see the video with Pat Robertson. Pat Robertson is pretty much known for the 700 Club, CBN, ran for president a couple of times for certain political parties.
He's 91 years old.
91, yeah, 91. Still has his wits. And actually, me and my wife watch him some evenings. But I want to show you guys a video of Pat Robertson and what he had to say about what's been happening recently. We all know he's pro-police. He is right wing, and he's as right wing as they come. Let me see if is it showing.
It's showing on the screen. We just gotta play it. I think that's an image too. So you gotta.
All right, cool. So let me play this. If you guys can see this video.
Also, I want to say, I think a lot of people are thinking, like I was, that both the gun and the taser would be put on your dominant side, but it's not that way.
Yeah, but they have to cross where they have them different.
So you actually
all right, and I got good internet.
to reach across yourself to
you
get
feel the
taser.
difference.
It's definitely
there's just no comparison. As I say, they're not making tasers in this yellow color anymore. They're making in black. They're making them yellow. Now, how she made the difference was she shot that poor guy to death, saying, "This is what I thought. I thought was my taser." And if you can't tell the difference in the feel of those things, it's crazy. Anyhow, she deserves. But I am pro-police, folks. I think we need the police. We need their servants, and they do a good job. But if they don't stop this onslaught, they cannot do this. The police in Virginia picked up a lieutenant in the Army and began to give him trouble. And our state police are highly trained. But why they don't stop this? And this thing is going on in Minnesota, but the Derek Chauvin, they ought to put him under the jail. He has caused so much trouble by kneeling on the death of George Floyd. It's just, on his neck. It's just terrible what's happening. And the police, why don't they open their eyes to what the public relations are? They've got to stop this stuff.
maybe they need more training.
Now, I was talking to somebody the other day about the training. I don't know if they need more training, right? Like, I have actually, I'm one of maybe the only people in my family that's not in law enforcement. My twin sister, my mother, my stepfather, my uncle, like all in law enforcement. I became a teacher, so that I'm hoping that these kids don't see my sister. Like that's how. And she's my twin sister too. We're in totally different fields. But a couple of things that he was saying. At first I was like, wow, like Pat Robertson talking big, like this is huge for a white evangelical Christian televangelist, telenews person to say this. But at the end, he said something about public relation. Right? I was like, my brother in Christ, why is that even a conversation? Because now it's been a matter of hiding everything so that they didn't have to address public relation. How about address the behavior, right? And not because the thing is, what's going to happen is this, right? And I was talking to somebody about this, right? This lady, right? This cop, she I can't say definitively if she meant to kill this boy. I can't. Or this young man. Let me not call him a boy. This young man. But I think he brought up some good points about the training. You can't really mistake a taser for a gun. However, we know in the video, the body cam footage, she shouts taser, taser, which is probably going to be the one key evidence that gets her off. But and kills him, right? But my thinking is like if she didn't want to do that, she didn't mean to do that, right? Okay, but this also sets a precedence for things like public relation. To get ahead of certain things. Now police officers could if she does get off, right? Which I think
just yell taser.
Yeah, just yell taser when you got the gun, right? Just yell taser, right? And the thing is, for years, police officers have been doing this on camera.
Yep.
Philando Castile did everything right. Got pulled over, turned off his car, rolled down the window, right? Had a I guess his paperwork, like his license stuff, and visible for the
Yep.
officer to see. When and the thing is, I've heard this. Like, if you are a licensed carrier, you are to tell the officer that you are a licensed carrier and you happen to have a gun in the car.
Yep.
He did that. He did that, right? And still got shot because he was reaching
Yeah.
for what? I think it was a seatbelt, right?
For a seatbelt. Yeah. And I mean,
Reaching for a seatbelt.
and not to mention the fact his fiance and children were in the car.
In the car.
And they like recklessly shot into his vehicle with other occupants in it.
Yes. After he was an educator. It wasn't like he was, you know, I wonder if did they run his plates? Did he have any warrants? And like, this young man resisted arrest. And I say this publicly. I'm not sure if you agree, Pastor Roy. He should have been tased. He should have been tased. He was resisting arrest.
My only question is, and I had this discussion with my team of lawyers that I was with all week working on a legal case.
Yeah.
But what was he getting arrested for? Right. I think we get put into the position in the Black community where we always got to be like, all right, bro, you can't resist arrest because it's not going to end well for you. But then I'm communicating to Black men that they don't have the right to actually stand up for their constitutional right to not be illegally detained, because he got pulled over for an air freshener, and traffic violations are not an arrestable offense. So he was getting arrested for resisting arrest. But what were you arresting him for?
Well, they said that he had when they ran his plates or ran the plates, it was warrants.
Yeah.
They ran his name and they found an arrest warrant for him. So they were arresting him.
Okay, so they found an arrest warrant for him, not the person who owned the car, because he didn't own the car. He was calling his mother to get the insurance information.
It's a good question. I got to figure that out, but I know that there was
because it wasn't his car.
Warrant,
But like, and so if that's the case, right? If they had a reason to arrest him, because that's what I hadn't seen in any of the information is he was resisting arrest. But in all of these cases, right? That's what you see. He was resisting arrest. But what were you arresting him for?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, and to go back to Lieutenant Nazario, same thing. Like, you're pulling him out of the car now, and you're trying to arrest him, but you're arresting him for a traffic violation, and now he's getting tased for resisting arrest when there was nothing for you to arrest him for in the first place. Like, you got to have a predicating arrest or a crime that was committed that he should be arrested for him to resist arrest, or it's just self-defense against assault.
Yeah.
If you're trying to illegally detain me, that's a violation of my constitutional right. And I should have a constitutional right to resist being illegally detained unless you have a lawful reason to detain me, right? And that's why even Lieutenant Gutierrez was like, I'm detaining you now because you're this, that. Like, he stated all of his little reasons and they were all utter nonsense. Yeah. But he was spitting it out there because he knows what the law is and the fact that he was probably going about to violate it. So, but
yeah. And I think that's a good point too. And the thing is, issue the summons, give the ticket, you know. And I think that we teach our young men that I just want you to get home. You know, I just want you to come home alive. So please don't resist. Please let them put the cuffs on you. Please let them violate your constitutional rights. And that's a hard pill to swallow. Pill to swallow, you know, because somebody said, well, you know, a Black sister said, well, you know, we need to just move past this. Well, we really can't move past this. Well, we need to heal from this. Is it us that really need to heal from it? Or is it their mindset that needs to heal first? Because we're on the defensive. It's hard to heal a wound. Hard for a wound to heal if the person who is stabbing you keeps stabbing you in it. Like, it's never going to heal. The healing can't happen from the person being stabbed. The healing's got to happen in the mindset of the person doing the stabbing. You know,
and even that, like, you can't argue that like the Black community or Black men or Black mentality or minority oppressed mentality needs to adjust itself to being less less sensitive to oppression, because it's like, even if we take it out of the wound, right? There are people who have, like, I've personally been pulled out of my car, had guns pointed to my head and been on the ground before. So that's a wound for me because that personally happened to me. You know what I mean? Like, my cousin was shot in the back by the police. You see what I'm saying? So, like, those are personal things to me. So these are wounds to me. It's not positional. This is personal. Yeah. But even from a defense perspective, if you see the offenses, like, the mental acuity of a human being is going to position yourself in the defensive. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So what people are telling us to do is to stop being in a defensive position, but you're not getting rid of the offense. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Like, it's not me just, I'm defensive because there is an offensive force out there.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I have to be in a defensive position, or I'm only doing myself harm by not being prepared to be able to respond to the offensive situation. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's not just stop stabbing me, but like you have to remove the circumstances that create the offense in the first place, because then I don't have to be in a defensive position. And I mean, and most people within any society who are the minority group are constantly in a defensive position. I was in Colorado visiting some friends of mine. So there's some executives, they're CEO, they own their own companies, but they lived in Russia for years. And they said they realized like coming back to America, because like even though they were white, they were still a minority. And the area where they were living outside of St. Petersburg was like an area where you constantly got robbed, pickpocketed, whatever. And they said, so the whole time we were there, we were in like this defensive position, right? Like everybody that came to visit, it was like, you got to wear your wallet on your chest and you can't put it in your pocket. And he said there was all of this stuff they got conditioned to, that they come back to America. And I mean, these are relatively wealthy people, right? So they're in like Aspen, and him and his wife are walking, and this older rich white lady like bumps into his wife's purse, and his wife responds by like snatching her purse, like she's about to get attacked by a purse thief.
Yeah.
Because that's the mindset she was in. And he said it took them like 10 or 12 days every time they came back in the country to realize that they were native, they were in the majority, and they didn't have to be afraid. And they were like, I can't understand growing up in that. And the native thing that you're used to is being in that state of defense where you're always worrying about the different things that can come against you. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, and that's the thing, it's like being a minority puts you in a position of defense because the majority of people don't care about what happens to you. Yeah. Right. So you've always got to be on guard yourself. And until you correct that situation, it's just going to be a different experience. And we're going to see the world through two different types of realities. One where we're trying to survive and mitigate offenses, and one where people are just trying not to be offensive. Yeah. Right. Because white people who claim to be woke, even those who are progressive or advocates, they're just living their life trying not to be offensive. They're not on the defense. Yeah. Right. So like, you're just trying not to be offensive. Right. And like, but where we're on the other side as the minority, which exists in every culture, as the minority, you're always going to be in that position of defense as the oppressed group of people, because every culture oppresses their minorities, all of them. Yeah. Right. Across the board. So,
yeah, it's an unfortunate human trait that we have. Yeah, man. But this is good stuff, Pastor Roy. I appreciate it. But I do want to get your input, because I know I talked a little bit about what Pat Robertson said. I want to hear your take on it.
Yeah, like, you know, it's funny, you picked up on something. So as I was watching, that's the first time I've watched that clip. Yeah. And then the public relations thing, to me, I was like, but at least he's honest, right? He's 91. Yeah. He ain't got enough time to figure out what he want to say. He just, you know, he give him the savage truth. I respect old people for that, because we more in alignment, that we don't really curve what we say much. But the other thing that I thought was interesting, and that's interesting in a lot of these, is that in that entire thing where Pat Robertson just talked about Derek Chauvin and the officer that shot, there still is no recognition of the Black lives that were lost in the situation. Facts. Right? Like I typed what he was saying when he said it, relating to Derek Chauvin, right? Who, now mind you, in our eyes as Black folk, the George Floyd killing, which, you know, preceded the release of the video of Ahmaud Arbery, that was the fall after the killing of Botham Jean, right? Like all of this stuff. I mean, the spring after Botham Jean was killed. Like, it's been compounding since Trayvon Martin in 2013. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's this culmination where we actually see what Derek Chauvin doing it so blatantly in public, right? Like, created this catalyst globally that drove corporations to recognize NASCAR, the MLB, the NBA, the NFL, right? Like, everybody to have this recognition. So we actually see what Derek Chauvin did as like, even though it's the death of George Floyd, right? But he participated in that as a catalyst for a movement that had been slowly building and pushing, that wound up getting global notoriety. Yeah. And the way that, and I'm quoting Pat Robertson, he said, Derek Chauvin, he caused so much trouble. Yeah. Which means what preceded after the death, the protest, like, you're categorizing that as trouble. Right? Because you're like, all of this trouble that caused, all the white evangelicals that got called to the table, The division within the Southern Baptist Convention where the black evangelicals are leaving because people, right? Like Pat Robertson had this nice coalition of black folk who didn't complain much and white folk who weren't too openly racist, and everybody was getting along and donate money to the 700 Club. Then Trump disrupted that a little bit politically, right? But then this became like a very sharp sword that divided sides, clearly. And he referred to it as trouble and then went on to talk about public relations. So I still think, and it's the way I was critical about like Kirk Franklin's apology. Like, you didn't apologize to your son, you apologized to your fans. And in this instance, like, he's not relating and he's not talking to the black community saying, like, I see what you're saying. This was unfair. This was unfortunate. The death of George Floyd was unfortunate. He's talking to his white constituency and saying, like, okay, we can't keep ignoring this. This is becoming a PR nightmare. We've got to say when this stuff is stupid. This is a taser. This is a gun. They feel different. We love guns. We advocate for guns. We talk about the Second Amendment all the time. We know what a 9mm feels like. We know what a 45 feels like. These are not the same. And we can say that because people have been afraid to say that, right? Like, they don't want to make common sense observations that seem to cross these lines of idolatry and allegiance between, and you said it earlier, the military, the police, and the church. Right? We love our troops, we love our police, and we love them more than the black people in our churches. We love them more than the black people in our communities, right? When the people made in the image of God are the ones in the uniforms, not the uniforms they wear. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think, and to add to that, we're called to love people, right?
Yes.
Not above anybody else, and to seek justice, right? So with that, whenever we align ourselves with one specific thing, even politically, because I like how Ruslan puts it, he's politically agnostic, and I ascribe to that too. Whenever you align to something, it's hard for you to see the things in it that are negative, because then it causes you to look at the mirror and self-reflect and think, oh, this got to be me too. This may be me too. And I know it's not me, so it can't be my affiliation. Can't be my affiliation possibly. So I think that believers really need to evaluate what they align themselves with and actually exist outside of all of that. So that when a situation like this happens, yes, you can be pro-police. Yes, you can be pro-military. Yes, you can be pro-black people. Yes, you can be pro-Latino people. Yes, you could be pro-white people. You can just be pro-people, period. You're pro-life. If you're pro-life, you're pro-everybody. So this way, if you are pro-everybody, you can look at this officer did this and he is wrong. He did it possibly because he's racist. All right. You could look at Colin Kaepernick and say he's doing this because he is upset that black people are dying at the hands of police in a disproportionate rate. See, when you love people, you look at things like that and from that perspective. But if you align yourself as an American evangelical and you're right wing, you can't possibly see the positives in what Colin Kaepernick was trying to do. You're just going to try to poke at the negatives or what you feel are the negatives. So and that's a true statement, man, because the one thing, and my children are homeschooled, and my kids go through like Proverbs regularly, and just kind of my wife teaching them the wisdom books, and one of the things my wife always says that I love, and just the way that we interact with each other within our home, is that like the Bible teaches us to consider other people more significant than ourselves. Right? So in that same regard, like even if I have an alignment, I'm supposed to be treating you more significant than me, right? So I'm supposed to be looking at you, your needs, your perspective, and understanding how do I best love you, right? And then, like you said, that would put us in a different position. Like I have Trump supporting, evangelical, right-wing, conservative, systemic racism, don't exist people that I love dearly, right? So when I look at situations like this with policing and everything else, I've got to look at it through their context, understand what it is, what they would see, and then try to speak to them in a way where they can understand maybe the other side or my point of view. But I'm doing that through the context of loving them and genuinely wanting them to understand my perspective or my feelings or my experiences, right? But when, like you said, when you're so aligned with what you know what I mean? Like you have no commonality with anybody unless they 100% agree with you.
Like, and that's just the danger of social media or like, you know what I mean? Like you and I both do YouTube. We put our opinions on YouTube and I have people that'll come argue with me my opinion. I'm not stating that my opinion is fact. It's my opinion. Yeah. Like if you have an opinion, state it in the comment section or go make your own video, right? Like I'm not here telling you need to think like me or that the way that I think is correct. This is just my observation. And as a Christian, right, especially if you're responding to our content as Christians, then you should have a degree of love for me to try to understand what I'm saying before you respond to it, right? But then like we don't do that. We let our flesh and our intellect and our observation and our biases get the best of us. And then we just want to fly off at the handle and respond to things that we don't agree with when like my tagline, I need to get a t-shirt, right? It's just listen. I tell people to listen past the offense. Yeah. Right? Listen past being offended and then listen long enough to understand what that person genuinely means. Yeah. And then be like, oh, because like, right, you get that. You ever get in an argument with somebody, but then by the time both of you get to the end, you're like, oh, we were pretty much agreeing. Yeah. But because of the way we came in, you said something offensive that took me out of active listening mode and put me into defensive mode. Yeah. And now I'm no longer taking in information, man. And that's what we all need to do. Like we need to listen past being offended. And that's the way from a Christian perspective we're supposed to behave. That means loving people. That means being patient. That means presenting and exercising the fruits of the Spirit that we're supposed to have as believers anyway. Yeah.
Bars. Pastor Roy, thank you so much, man. I don't want to keep you too long. All right? No problem, I appreciate your time, man. I know you're very busy, and I know it's the weekend. You got your family. I wanted to close out with this scripture, though. Everybody, it's a pretty popular scripture, and I think it has it's within context of our conversation. It's a really good verse, a passage to close us out. I'm not sure if are you able to see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So Micah 6:6-8. And I like the tag here. I don't really focus too much on this, but it hit me. What does the Lord require? Right. And I think that this is something that we really need to focus on as believers. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves of a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O man of God, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly before your God. Simple, basic, simple, to the point, right? To the point. All right. Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly before your God.
Yeah. Look, my cup, brother.
Yes. Is that merch?
Administer justice. No, it's actually a nonprofit organization that has gospel justice centers all over the country to provide free legal, civil legal support with Christian counseling around the country. We actually opened the first one in North Carolina. We're still recruiting. I'm the justice champion for the state of North Carolina. So, and it's funny because Micah 6:8 is one of the founding scriptures of that organization. Yeah. And it's seek justice and do kindness. And that's what we need to do. And that's what it should be about, right? We should want people treated fairly because they're made in the image of God. Not just the people we like, not just the people we agree with, not just the people who are like us, right? It's the people that God made. And so unless you want to put people in a category other than the fact that God made them, right? They're all deserving of our love because they have his love. So,
yeah, man. And on that note, please go over to Pastor Roy Dockery's channel, link in the description, hit subscribe, check out his content because it's dope, uplifting, relevant, factual, even his opinionated based stuff got facts in it. Listen, please check him out. Again, if you want to close us out with just a little bit about who you are for those who are joining after the fact.
Yeah. Pastor Roy Dockery. That's the YouTube channel. We have a Patreon community, Discord channel, all of that other stuff. There's the Savage Truth podcast. There's 70+ episodes that are still out there. I'm not generating any new audio podcast content because it's all on YouTube, but we got over 200 videos on YouTube that are all from the last 4 months. So it's not a lot of old content. Like you said, everything is relevant, relatively current. And we do Savage News updates daily as long as I'm not on the other side of the country. And then we have like Q&As and kind of Ask Pastor Roy sections as well, man. But I'm a healthcare executive, a local pastor, podcaster, YouTuber, philanthropist, got a nonprofit. We do homeless outreach and community outreach and advocacy. So yeah, man, gotta stay busy because the laborers are few. So
yeah. he's one man that's applying Micah 6:8. So I appreciate you, Pastor Roy Dockery, for your time. I've been wanting to have a conversation with you for since almost your channel started. And I thank you for allowing me the privilege to have this conversation with you and agreeing to do this with me.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man. Love what you guys are doing as well. And anytime you need me, just let me know.
All right, bro.
Right,
guys, thank you so much for watching. Listen up. Let me put my audio on because that's what I do. If you have not done so yet, hit the like button. If you don't like the video, I don't mind you hitting the unlike. I appreciate the engagement. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have not done so yet, hit the subscribe button and join the Harrison Extended family. Hit the bell notification next to it so it'll let you know when I upload new videos or when I go live, okay? And until the next live stream or the next upload, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, I'm out. Peace.